So the Kate Martin versus Angel Reese matchup was big.
How recently did you do that? You witnessed a WNBA player get completely destroyed on court.
Rare missed layup by Tiffany Hayes. Angel tries to say, ball don't lie, driving the other way, and Martin got a piece of Reese.
What transpired between Kate and Angel Reese and Martin aren't simply. Its personal payback is another highlight. Served cold, keep in mind that LSU game of the championship, let's suppose Martin forgot, but that's not even the situation. The most bizarre aspect is when you hear what happened with rising celebrity Lexie Hull, who had caused everyone to doubt the Rose's coaching choices.
Was not such a key player for the Las Vegas Aces. A lot of teams passed on her in the draft. Maybe both the Aces will regret letting her go, and those teams will regret passing her up if what she's doing at Unrivaled translates when she has a bigger share of the offensive burden and the load. Because Martin is showing off all the aspects of her game. You know, she's able to be a complementary player, which she showed next to Caitlin Clark at Iowa, but she was kind of thought of as Clark's sidekick in a...
From block benchings and an expulsion that no one anticipated that this game would end. Fans stunned. Let's dissect this crazy showdown.
Kate Martin may be the breakout star at Unrivaled so far. Not a breakout star in a sense of her notoriety going up, because Kate was always almost more famous in her WNBA professional career so far than her actual production on the floor. But in what she's been able to do out on the floor that has people wondering if she's primed to do more. At the WNBA level with the Golden State Valkyries, where she's expected to be a key player for...
Allow me to return you to what? Maybe the three most intense ones on the list. The best basketball match of the season. Imagine this ideal Venice beach. Weather and stress levels so high that you may, using a knife, cut the undefeated laces. The basketball club arrives with a flawless record versus Angel. Rose Basketball Club has Reese, but no one may have foreseen what was going on. Descend, let's begin at the instant that Angel had everyone's jaws dropped. After winning the LSU title, Reese, victory most likely believed she was in for another outstanding performance. You know how Reese adores instances worthy of being captured on video. Kate Martin, however, had other ideas. Reese was likely driving to the hoop. Martin, she's already organizing her celebration, appeared suddenly, like a heat-seeking. The block wasn't simply clean, missile. Was terrible. The ball didn't just get. It was delivered to you for next week. Ought to have observed the response of the audience. Kate was screamed at by someone in the stands. Returned Barbie to the bayou. No one missed the allusion to LSU. Not on Martin in particular, as this wasn't. This was a personal block, not just any block. Recall the national championship match, when Martin's Iowa was defeated by Reese's LSU team. Martin most certainly didn't ignore.
Huge for any sport. Obviously, Kate not lacking in confidence, but you don't want to be looking over your shoulder. Am I going to get the hook if I make a turnover, if I take a bad shot? All those things. That's playing freely, being allowed to play your game. And I think you're seeing that with Kate Martin and Unrivaled, and I think you'll see that with Kate Martin in Golden State, given the state of that franchise as an expansion franchise. So the arrow is pointing up. Maybe it's too late, but you know, recently was probably the time to have bought Kate Martin's stock.
However, what makes this tale even more interesting is the Laces were doing all of this more juicily, without Alyssa Thomas and with only 4 players. No, Jackie Young is both injured. Perhaps most teams would be rushing, even offering justifications for not the Laces. They transformed what ought to have been a drawback to a team masterclass. Tiffany and Kayla McBride in basketball. Hayes was in charge as if they'd played together all of their lives. Every clip, every screen, every pass, it was basketball poetry in motion. These players' chemistry is, it's like something you can't teach. They possess telepathy of some sort. Connection on the court. Let's now have a conversation about the Rose's strategy, or need I to say absence of it. They entered thinking they could just depend on each. Talent made a tremendous error, and the Laces were chess game while the Roses were playing checkers whenever Rhea attempted to intimidate her way to the basket she discovered, herself slamming into a flawless defender in position. Discussing Reese. The elephant in the room has to be addressed. Her performance following that block of monsters. Something changed for Martin. It seemed as though, observing someone attempting to operate a vehicle with, she hesitated to use the parking brake. She was doubting that signature. Swagger has disappeared from the. Additionally, the first 4 digits are honest. Reese scored 4 points in the minutes. She seemed to be having a tremendous game. Then reality struck more forcefully than one of. The fouls began to pile up after Martin's blocks, rising more quickly than Instagram likes on a post. Before you knew it, she posted 1, 2, and 3. Was using greater caution than a cat would in. Lots of rocking chairs in the room, but what truly made folks speak was the way they changed their defense, but the Laces didn't. Raise, please quit making her look typical each time she received the ball. Bodies were flying all over the place. Perfect assistance from hands and passing lanes. Defense, it was similar to observing a master. Explanation and the process of neutralizing a star player, the audience was also enthralled. Each time Martin played defense on Reese, the crowd at Venice Beach got. You could sense the change in intensity as it got louder. What began as a game during the regular season transformed into a personal item. Greater. Winning wasn't the only goal. Anyhow, the goal was to make a statement. And Martin really did say that. She didn't say anything following the massive block. Word didn't have to. Her game took care of everything. Conversing while Reese searched for. All around the place was her rhythm. Martin diving for loose balls on the court, creating the. It was extra pass, establishing hard screens. Like observing a person who took all that displeasure during the final game and turned it into the pinnacle of basketball excellence. The disparity in coaching was also intriguing. The coach of LA, Andrew Wade, was like a grandmaster of chess. Each replacement, every tactical change was flawless. In the meanwhile, the Roses bench appeared, perplexed as though they were attempting to resolve. In the absence of light, a Rubik's Cube. The spacing between the rotations was a mess. Off, and let's not even talk about their defensive responsibilities by the third quarter. The irritation was evident. Incorporating Reese's body language into the. She was seen shaking her head on video. Following yet another defensive save by Martin. This wasn't the game she had envisioned. Wasn't a retaliation tour she most likely took. Intended after the fervor on social media. The LA's collaboration was exceptional. Even with only 4 players to observe, the ball was being moved by them like the Harlem Globetrotters returned quickly. The door cuts were perfectly spaced. When it comes to basketball, McBride would. Dolson discover Hayes slashing to the basket. Would provide Martin with the ideal screen. Would be available to correct any mistakes. The weird thing about the Laces is, enhanced their league-leading performance in. Most teams in this game are having trouble with. The amount of injuries would decline. These women did not allow rebounds. Has the lowest and help steals. Talk about the league's turnover rate. Maximizing a limited roster, and the fourth quarter then began. Already having a hard time with foul problems. Attempted a final effort, but you know how this tale concludes. One more offense and she had finished walking to the bench, like witnessing someone who has just come to terms with. They arrived at a gunfire game with a knife. I appreciate you playing the last few. The Laces were all that was visible during the minutes. Martin even added a nay at this point. The crowd was going crazy after seeing it. It was similar to witnessing someone place the rose is the finishing touch to a masterpiece. Had no choice but to observe as their hopes of an upset vanished more quickly. Let's dig before Reese's playing time into what might possibly be the largest heads scratcher of the entire circumstance. This player, Lexie Hull saga, just lost 10 minutes and 19 points in their last match that led the Rose to the season's first and only victory. You'd believe she would get some significant. It's playing time, so fasten your seatbelt. Since in the game, this becomes strange. Hull spent more money against the Laces. More time warming the bench than really playing basketball for just 3 minutes. Until the end of the third quarter, she gave a player 3 minutes to process it, who recently played a career game. It's similar to own a Ferrari, and choosing to accept the bus rather than the strange coach Nola Henry is always complimenting Hull. Following the game, she discusses how that's simply Lexie's personality and the way she looks out methods to have an influence at every level. Is that the true reason she's observing? The disconnect throughout the game from the bench between the coach's statements and deeds as delivering a whiplash to everyone when Hull had her opportunity late in the game. She demonstrated that everyone was correct in her defense. The unstoppable was being choked to death. Lace's struggle to get past her was making life difficult by pressing full court. Challenging for Kate Martin as well as Tiffany Hayes, these are elite WNBA the guys were discussing, and Hull was securing them as though they were having fun in a high school athletic event. But here is where the Roses make it much more intriguing. The offense was sputtering and had no holes in it. They appeared disoriented and lost on the floor. Similar to a band performing a variety of songs at the same time the few minutes Hull was playing the game, when they suddenly developed rhythm. It was like to witnessing purpose direction. Two entirely distinct teams members in the stands were beginning to take notice as well. The muttering were audible. Why isn't what's happening with Hull playing more? Even some former players in the rotations were trembling while watching the game. Overhearing one former WNBA player claiming that this constitutes coaching malpractice, statistics provide a more devastating picture. Narrative in the limited minutes that Hull performed. In fact, the Roses were surpassing the Laces' defensive rating increased. Their turnover rates decreased, and although their shoots were improving, the Rose, rather than riding the hot hand, retained their best player on the while Angel Reese suffers on the bench mounted further. It wasn't only the fouls, her whole strategy for the game. There comes a pivotal point into the first quarter properly captures it. Reese finds a deal and has an easy way to easy basket with no defenders in sight bucket. But no, she returns it to a colleague who is behind the play. Even the commentators were perplexed, which brings us to a more extensive discussion of the status of the basketball team Rose. They're now the season's 1-to-3 ratio, and the issues are more complex than strange. Judgments about rotation. There appears to be a fundamental discrepancy between they are talented and execute well. Reese and other players are meant to be a star who is unable to remain on the court, and Hull is demonstrating that she is worthy of more minutes, but Jason is unable to obtain them. Whitlock's remarks regarding Reese is the weakest basketball player in the although history has been unkind. They're starting a crucial discussion as her game is impacted by her social media fame. Are the sponsorship deals and in-posts putting her development last basketball abilities? The difference between the methods used by the two teams couldn't be the Lace is even lacking in certain areas. Perform as smoothly as a well-maintained machine. Each the participant embraces their job, is aware of it, and performs the Rose. They appear beautifully, as though they're still attempting to who they are collectively. Let's discuss for a while. Those team dynamics. The talent alone does not account for LA's success. Trust is key. See how they talk about their movements on defense, how they congratulate each other without the ball, others' achievements. Now take a look at the Rose. The body language conveys a narrative about bewilderment, annoyance, and maybe even some animosity at the coaching choices. Weeks of controversy will surround this game. Why should Hull remain on the bench? While she's demonstrated her ability to play, so why not adapt? When it's evident that Reese is these are more than simply XS and OS that are suffering. The questions that pertain to comprehension, placing your guys in positions to win as the game progressed, highlighting the variations between the teams, made the Laces much more noticeable. Even if there are only 4 players playing, seemed new and centered. The Rose with their whole roster seemed worn out and defeated. It goes beyond. Conditioning involves mental fortitude. Regarding team dynamics in the wake of this game could have enduring ramifications. Of the Laces for both teams are now recognized as the team to beat, demonstrating they can win even without their whole lineup. Their approach to perform a selfless, team-focused defensive game sound might serve as the model for achievement for the Rose in this league. The game revealed some significant problems that the whole problem must be addressed, but you can't continue to give it your all. Players who expect to win while sitting on the bench, and Reese must figure out how to continue on the court and make regular contributions. Although there is talent, the execution is lacking. Is not anticipating the future. Both teams are at the Laces at the crossroads, have an opportunity to make something spectacular to demonstrate that basketball teams can win against the Rose. Needs to pursue individual prominence. Some introspection. Do they continue to their present strategy and hope that enhance? Or is a comprehensive change in their approach to this game wasn't only a typical season game? It was a picture of 2 rather distinct methods for a single team of basketball embracing cooperation in system basketball, while the other is still attempting to determine who they are as the season. It will be interesting to observe how things develop. Which strategy works better? One thing we haven't discussed yet is this game's effect on social media. Footage of Martin's block on within hours. Reese was stacking up everywhere. Views in the millions. But it wasn't only the attention-grabbing highlight plays. Analysts of basketball were crying. The entire circumstance Frame by frame, doubting the Roses hold a fan response and organizational plan has been quite fascinating for a lot of who arrived to the game in Reese jerseys departed discussing Hulls with Martin's perseverance and defense. There's a change in people's perceptions. Women's basketball is about more than only star power. Fans are beginning to recognize the nuances of team basketball's significance basics and the elegance of effectively implemented defense plans. The game also brought attention to something important. On the development of 3-on-3 basketball's conventional regulations regarding when elite players dominate the game. They don't use this format to succeed here. Need a distinct set of abilities. Adaptability, basketball IQ, and the capacity to perform on both sides of the court. The Laces have successfully worked this out. Perhaps they are still learning out of the row. Examining the larger picture the hard way, imagine that this game may be a tipping point. League teams are keeping an eye on this subject. Matchup are most likely noting the Laces have offered a guide for success. Prioritize teamwork above defense is maintained by individual statistics. Discipline and create a clever rotation choices based on performance instead of compared to Hull's reputation in this game. Despite her short hours, she may have ironically, she boosted her stock around less playing time in the league at times. Increases her efficiency and intrigue. In the little time she spent playing, those that are curious about what she could achieve with a bigger part. Many teams are allegedly already expressing interest in hiring her for the upcoming season. This might be the wake-up call for Reese. She occasionally required a public call. Stumbling might result in personal development. I wonder whether she will utilize this experience as inspiration to broaden her game or write it off as simply a poor day at the office's answer in the near future. Games will reveal a great deal about her character and her room for development. You've got it in this league. People, a game that will be discussed for weeks after Martin's declaration block to the perplexing bench time of Hull. The game demonstrated why the NBA's 3-on-3 must-at basketball is the format. What do you consider the coaching choices made by the Roses? Had Hull been able to play more minutes? Leave your comments below with your opinions. If you found this breakdown smash enjoyable, then click like and subscribe to see more. When watching the WNBA, remember to ring that bell notification to remain informed about all the most recent controversy on and off the. I'll see you at the next one. Cord.